Right. Well, while we're filling up the room here, just want to welcome you all for the number 4 of our How To From Home. It's been a lot of the same community coming back every week, which is awesome. We're just going to wait a few minutes here to get you all settled in. I'm just going to start our live stream on Facebook. This is so easy. I love it.
Perfect.
All right. Well, yeah, welcome again, everyone. As I said, this is number 4 of our How To From Home, which is a series that is part of our ongoing education series called How To. We've been talking about live streaming, we've been talking about presenting tips, strategies, basically to elevate your performances now and also create skills for long term. I'm Jimmy, I'm from Music BC. Today we've got a chance to meet the experts. This is Tech Tips, Audio Visual. Our experts will be sharing their knowledge on how to elevate your audio video for your next online performance, live stream, or pre-recorded content. But mainly we're also here to field your questions. So I definitely want you guys to take advantage of the Q&A button at the bottom there. Those on Facebook, that won't apply to you, but we'll be monitoring the comments. So yeah, we definitely want to open it up to a lot of questions. And if there's specifics you want to ask the panel, we definitely want to hear those. So do engage on that. Also like to thank Creative BC, the Province of British Columbia, Factor, and the Government of Canada for continuing to support our initiatives like this. It's been a challenging time to say the least, but we're very, very happy and happy to be in Canada. A few housekeeping things. At the end of the panel, we'll have a survey go out. We'd definitely love for you to fill that out. It's going to help guide the future topics we'll do week over week. And you can also post questions after the fact there that we can get to after today's panel. This session is also going to be recorded. So if you do want to report back, it'll be on our YouTube page and living on Facebook for a number of weeks. And yeah, again, really looking forward to hearing some of the expertise from this panel today. But again, really encourage you guys to engage, ask questions, and help inform us what you'd like us to talk about. Yeah, so this week we were joined by Caisha Lea Thomspon. She's an award-winning film director, sound engineer, musician. Caisha, thanks for being here.
Of course.
Elliot, who's the technical director at FNAV. He's worked in the industry for over 10 years and has been involved in some of the biggest events in BC and beyond. Mirko Vogel is the studio manager, sound designer, and producer. He runs the studio here for a company called Vaudeville, which specializes in mixing for television, streaming platforms, and other digital formats. Very happy to have you, Mirko.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And last but not least, you have Robert Wilson, who's going to be moderating the conversation. He's got about 8 or 9 different titles and skill sets: production manager, technician, teacher, songwriter, musician. And he's also been key in some of the biggest events in BC you can imagine. So we're in good hands. Thank you for being here, Rob. Yeah, that's all for me. I'll let you guys take it away. But again, I'll be monitoring the questions and I'll jump in when we've got a couple of things coming up. Enjoy.
Awesome. So welcome, everybody. Really happy to have all of the panelists here together, and hopefully we can guide you guys in some direction in terms of upping your game or maybe making you brave enough to have a swing at live streaming or sort of jumping into the video world. Maybe just for a start, I just want to sort of go around the panel and maybe give everybody an opportunity to speak a little bit to their experience, some of the stuff they've been working on, and maybe specifically anything that you guys have been doing in the streaming world that sort of is guiding your process right now. And why don't we start with Elliot? I mean, I know Elliot from the corporate AV world primarily. And he's an ace in my books. He's the guy that I call when I can't figure out some technical loophole. So, Elliot, tell us what you've been up to. I think maybe specifically with some of the stuff that you've been doing down at the Red Room.
Yeah, just a little bit of background. I've been doing corporate events for the last 10 years in a variety of capacities. Was primarily audio based, and now switching into more of the project management and technical direction for these large events that have gone on pause. And since they've gone on pause, I've been working with the digital motion crew at Red Room to help produce their live streams that they do. They have guest DJs come one at a time and perform their 1 hour sets, and been trying to elevate that stream for them. That's been filling up my last 10 weeks now.
And Caisha, tell us a little bit about you and your, I mean, you're coming more from a filmmaker background, but you've obviously got experience and roots in recording audio for film, which is, you know, a very exacting and specific skill set, and as well as a huge experience of creating recorded content. How are you approaching this time?
During this time, mostly I've just been learning how to do more post-production in terms of music. Basically the entire film industry is shut down right now, but yeah, my main job is production sound mixing, and obviously have a degree in film from Simon Fraser's University's School of Contemporary Arts. So essentially now I'm just waiting for the indie film community to come back up, and that'll probably, yeah, start with music videos and probably some documentaries and shorts. But yeah, that's kind of my background. I'm a jazz drummer as well, so it's more of, during the quarantine time, all my stuff's kind of pre-recorded right now, so I'm working on the post aspect for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Mirko, my buddy Mirko, I first met Mirko. He was touring with Cut Copy. I know Jimmy introduced him as someone who's running a studio, but I know this guy to have many skill sets. So he's coming from a touring background as well as a sound designer and a composer and a guitar player. And I'm sure there's probably even skill sets that I haven't even discovered about you yet, Mirko. But tell us a little bit about sort of your perspective and your experience right now.
Yes, well, I guess my my background, like Rob said, is started out in live show production and live show design, and then I started working in post-production maybe 7 or 8 years ago as a sound designer and as a mixer, and so a lot of the work that we've been doing with our studio here sort of uses a lot of the the experience and skills that we all have acquired over that sort of time, and has interwoven a lot of these things together, actually. Rob Wilson, my good friend, Rob Calder, and I also have another company, and we've been doing quite a lot of live streams for the British Columbia government, the provincial government, and so yeah, so between working on feature films and doing sort of more remote ADR streaming and facilitating connections between a lot of different countries, and doing these sort of live streams for the government, for Creative BC, and sort of a bunch of other music projects. I think my main takeaway, and I think probably what would be interesting to sort of see what people come at us with questions is to sort of see how we can not only elevate these live streams technically, but also actually make them interesting to watch. And I think that's really been our biggest challenge that we've been working with. I feel like technically, you know, there's a lot of great tools available, and they're not particularly expensive. There's a lot of great minds, like the people here in this webinar, that have a lot of experience to share. Yeah, hopefully we can help people make interesting ideas and point cameras at them and have other people see them. So yeah, that's basically my take. So I think
that's great, Mirko. I think that's a great point. Yeah, I'm sure we can touch on that a little bit in terms of, yeah, if we have to see another person standing in their bedroom playing acoustic guitar, it's like, how do we elevate that experience and brings another level of artistry to the things that we're creating. Maybe just as a starter, I mean, this is a big topic. I mean, just quickly my experience, just for the question, anyone asking questions. So I'm not necessarily an expert in streaming, although I've done a little bit of it. My expertise is mostly in producing large festivals and coordinating that kind of stuff. I spent many years as an audio tech, as well as an AV tech, sort of, peddling in a little bit of lighting and a little bit of video and a few other things. But certainly spent, close to 30 years now producing events and gatherings for people. And now we're gathering online. So it's an interesting time. For me, looking at this thing, and I've been spending a lot of time going down all kinds of YouTube rabbit holes, looking at tutorials on how, settings in OBS and how to link OBS to Zoom and how to link Zoom back to OBS and how to use, a lot of the free and accessible things, how to connect my iPhone as a camera and looking at all these different ways to sort of up the production value for without spending a lot of money. And in my experience, it is much harder than you would think. Obviously there are people that are succeeding in just plugging in an iPhone and connecting it to Instagram and that being what it is. And I think there's something to be said for that sort of guerrilla approach. But if we are trying to elevate this thing beyond that, maybe we can have a quick pass around and just talk about sort of, let's say that you're a musician and you've never streamed before and you're looking to, do something slightly better than just, using your phone as a recording source. Where do we start? Where does somebody start? Maybe Elliot, tell us a little bit about your process in terms of getting the Red Room from zero to, live on Twitch.
Yeah. So when this all kicked off, we sort of threw something together quickly and got a stream up and running, and we've been gradually increasing the sort of technical capabilities of it. We got an external camera switcher, just a cheap little Blackmagic ATEM Mini. They're kind of like gold dust right now for anyone that wants to stream in gaming or in live music. And that allows us to switch 4 cameras straight into our broadcast computer. And capturing audio, we just have a simple Focusrite 2i2 interface, mixing down from the audio console in the club. So really, the ATEM is the cheapest way to get multiple cameras going. There are lots of single input interface options as well that you can use. Elgato have a few. They have the Stream Link or Camera Link, which allows you to have a 4K camera input. So if you have a DSLR or some sort of film camera already, you can pick one of those up and plug that straight in. And any of the software that you would want to use to broadcast, whether that's OBS or vMix or live stream, then we'll be able to use that as a video source for your stream and give you a good quality camera input. I think the large part for us being, for the digital motion stream being primarily DJs, is also having the visual artists and being able to put them as a full screen option on our stream so that it's a little more visually enticing.
Mirko, maybe can you speak a little bit to your experience with the Showcase BC event that you guys did, and any other recent experience in terms of your...
Sure. Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that we have sort of struggled with and then really embraced is trying to see how we can do sort of multi-camera switching stuff or multi-perspective, much like this Zoom call actually, and make it so that you don't necessarily need a lot of infrastructure to pull it off. Because I think the people that we've been working with are not in controlled environments, like in a club, for instance. And so a lot of the time you have to just work with what people have. And it's trying to make what people have look and sound good, but then also make the viewing experience, you know, pretty, well, hi-fi as you can get it, basically. So we've, a lot of the streams that we've done we've literally just used Zoom as a camera switcher. And that includes having multiple Zoom phone-ins from a single location. So if you need to switch cameras, you just use the spotlight feature in Zoom to switch your camera angles. You know, you can feed audio from one source, like a mixer or from an interface or whatever it is. But use existing software platforms to essentially do some of that heavy lifting for you. I mean, it's not going to be 4K. It's going to be pretty low resolution output, but it is doable. And I think for a lot of people with limited resources, or maybe in people that aren't able to actually get to a venue or something, it's thinking about how you can really make build your own venue at home or wherever you are, in a garage, outside, you know, whatever it is. So using existing gear that you might have, if it's like a laptop and, you know, a phone or something like that, gives you 2 camera inputs into Zoom. And if you're using that as your primary way to get information, like to get your stream out to Facebook or anywhere else, you can do it. Even if you're using OBS and you use, you know, do a screen grab of one phone on Skype and another phone on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or any other kind of you know, conferencing platform, you can pretty easily build a camera switching system into that. So I think you know, we've been dealing with you know, politicians in their offices or at home, musicians around the country or around the province of BC, and trying to kind of work with what resources people have available. And that's like, yeah, repurposing devices, repurposing, you know, instrumentation, and really, I think more than anything, thinking about how you can create create your own venue. Because so much of what makes you know, something engaging to look at is how it's presented and the surroundings that it's presented in. So that's a lot of our work has really been working with people's spaces, as opposed to, you know, people's performances directly, I guess. But it's really like looking at what's in the background, looking at making sure that, you know, you're looking at the camera properly and that the lighting is somewhat workable, and, you know, using desk lamps as a lighting source if there's not enough natural light. Make sure that the contrast's good. Make sure you're not wearing something that's like, you know, futzes out the camera stuff. Like, make sure that, you know, your camera's clean, and that the way that you're presented to your audience is the way that is as good as you can possibly get it with the resources that you have. So yeah, a lot of our sort of work with people, with musicians, with politicians, and people who are participating in these streams is to really utilize what they have around them and make them look as good as they can look, essentially. And, you know, that includes getting into their router and making sure they've got enough data output, uploads and downloads.
Mirko, I think we can dive down. Let's dive down that whole, you know, some of the tech specs in a few minutes. I think that stuff is super important. But before I wanted to just catch on some of the things you said and maybe throw that over to Caisha, who's, you know, an experienced filmmaker and who deals with lighting and framing and is hyper aware of you know, content and as it's created as a filmmaker. I mean, I think for me, you know, I mean, I like to think that people know what TV is supposed to look like. We've all watched the Grammys. We've all watched endless numbers of sitcoms, and suddenly, us as indie musicians or small festivals or whoever we are, we're suddenly putting ourselves up on a platform and saying, "Hey, we are now TV." So, you know, there's a lot of learning that we need to do to try to fake our way into that and make the content and the stuff that we're creating digestible and interesting to an audience. So maybe, you can touch on a few things in terms of, lighting or framing or, any of your approach as a filmmaker.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely from when you're not doing pre-recorded stuff, when you can't take one camera and get multiple shots because you do it over and over and over again. I mean, if you're doing something live, even if you just have one camera and can't do a camera can't use a camera switcher, like Elliot and Mirko were saying, like, there are ways to make your frame dynamic, and I think that's kind of the key in terms of like a one camera like live stream for a musician, for a presenter, whatever. Nobody, like, I shouldn't say nobody, but yeah, nobody really wants to see a musician playing against a blank wall. That's not fun. That's not dynamic. That doesn't look like TV. It looks like you're talking to somebody through a webcam, which, you can do, especially like, if it's a good song, you have good stage presence, but there are definitely low budget ways to like really up the game. And what you're saying about the fact that, yeah, we are now TV is completely true. I mean, you can buy a really cheap DSLR and that'll get you, I guess, that'll get you like an actual depth of field, like some blur in the background rather than everything being in focus, which will get you to that first step of a more cinematic look. And lighting is huge in this. Like, there are so many ways to cheaply upgrade your lighting. And, if you can't move the camera and have dynamic movement through it, then for sure, like, use some lighting. Like, one of my favorite lights that are actually pretty budget savvy right now are quasars by Quasar Science. You can either get just crossfade like LED lights. They're kind of like fluorescent light tubes that you can adjust the Kelvin temperature, so just either warm or cold lighting. Or they also sell kind of RGB ones, which can fade to any color, and they look great in frame too. So you can just throw them anywhere in frame, or you can have, more colored lighting, or, more lighting coming from one side. Like, looking into lighting theory, there's tons of videos on YouTube about lighting theory, about having key lights and, backlights and hair lighting and everything like that. Even like if you're going to get China balls from IKEA, you can hang those in the frame or those in the background and just have dynamic shadows, dynamic lighting, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of cheap ways to do it. I think that's maybe one of the first steps of taking a normal live stream that you might be able to put on Instagram to something that looks more studio. And I really like what Mirko said, was talking about turning your space into your own studio with what you have. That's totally what you kind of want to do. You kind of want to, make it kind of look like your own studio.
Yeah. I had an experience recently where I was doing a live stream and I had a bunch of lights set up. I just had some little colored LED. And my experience was that it was actually too much light. And I was talking to some of the people that I know that stream regularly, and they were saying that often in webcasting, the colors get, adapted a little bit and brightened and stuff. So it's in this, I often think that, like, when I've done real like film shoots in the past, that they need a lot of light. But with these webcams and a lot of these other cameras that we're using now, it seems like you can get away with a lot less light.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's also the difference between if you are just using your computer's webcam or your phone, that's always automatically compensating, exposure. Like, if I go like this, like, my background's going to get darker. So if I have light sources, it's going to darken the entire frame. That's all auto within, your webcam, your phone. So, hopefully you have access to like a cheap DSLR that shoots like 1080p that works. Like, they're like $200 for the body now on Craigslist, and that's going to give you way more control over any of your lighting settings, frame rate, et cetera, et cetera. So being able to have access to a DSLR and plug it in is a lot better. But you're completely right. Within webcams or just phones, like, honestly, like a single LED panel, which you can get for like $50 on Amazon, pointed a little bit in front of you, will give you a nice light that, yeah, your webcam will compensate for and probably make it look a little bit nicer for sure.
Mm-hmm. So let's jump over to, we've talked just a little bit about how to make the video look better. Let's talk a little bit about how to make it sound better. I mean, I certainly have some opinions. There's a variety of ways, I guess, to get audio into, you know, our streaming setups. Maybe Mirko and Elliot, Elliot, you talked a little bit about your guys' setup at the Red Room. So you've got, you know, your audio inputs coming into an analog desk or I guess a digital desk, and then that's coming out into an audio interface. And you know, feel free to jump on the chat, guys, if you want us to define what any of these gear pieces are. I don't want to be shooting above anybody's head, but you know, what are some techniques that we can use to improve the audio getting into people's systems? Mirko, I'll let you take it away, and then I'll maybe chime in some of my thoughts after you guys.
Well, I think the first thing that I would ask is, what are you actually trying to broadcast? Because like, look, the same thing that you would look when you're miking up an instrument in a studio or a band on stage or in any other sort of scenario is to, like, you need to know what your source is, and then also to kind of make sure that that source is appropriate for what you're trying to do. So like a huge challenge with, I think in general, even on big stages, are percussive instruments and percussion, so drums, that kind of stuff. Anything with a high transient, high amount of transients in it is going to be a challenge. So I think, you know, versus like a line in sort of DJ source, it's going to be easier for these platforms to handle that kind of input. So I think the first thing you need to know when talking about audio is what you're trying to capture, how you want your audience to hear what you're capturing. And then once you know that, there'll be a whole bunch of different solutions that work for that thing. So yeah, if you are a singer-songwriter and you're playing guitar, maybe the best solution is just to use a good USB mic, if you can get your hands on one, and turn off all of the sort of audio, you know, sort of compensation and various algorithms that a lot of streaming platforms put in place to handle speech mostly. But you know, if you're a DJ, like look at just getting a good little audio interface for your computer, or some loop back function if you're streaming directly from your computer, to make sure that you can loop your audio from your DJ software into your streaming software. I think the other thing to really understand is the limitations of the platforms that you're working to. So you know, once you sort of know what you want to broadcast, you want to know how your audience you would like your audience to receive that, is to know what the limitations are. And so like Zoom has certain limitations. It's a great platform, but obviously has like pretty severe audio limitations in what you can output. And every streaming platform will have some sort of limitation. So for instance, Zoom, you can't really put any more signal into Zoom than -9 peak. If you go over that, Zoom will automatically start compressing and limiting the dynamic range of the signal beyond that. So no matter what you turn off, it will always go, it will always push it back under -9. And I think one thing that I would say, other than trying to sort of, you know, control the many variables of different platforms, is to do a sound check. So before you do anything, no matter what gear you've plugged in, it's like go and start a demo YouTube account or Facebook account, do a demo live stream for 5 minutes and see what it sounds like to you. And then just like you would with any other sound check in a club or when you're trying to set record levels in a studio, is make sure that what is coming out sounds good. And if you don't have an engineer to help you with that, then learn how to do it yourself. Listen critically and make sure that what you're putting out is actually something you'd like to listen to. And I think a lot of live streams that I've seen, no matter if it's like from DJs or from singer-songwriters, you know, lots of different types of performers, they've just not listened to themselves back. And I think that's like critically important when you're sending any sort of signal to an audience, whether it's in the same room or on a streaming platform, is to listen to what it sounds like. All these platforms show you what you look like. You know, Zoom, it's like you can see what you look like. You can go like, oh, I don't really like these two empty speaker stands behind me. Maybe I should move them away. Or maybe the light needs to be more like that.
I was going to, yeah, I like the speaker stands. They frame you nice.
I had to reutilize my 5.1 system for something else in this room. But you know, it's like you can see what you look like, and you can go like, oh, okay, more lighting here, less lighting here. This looks a bit weird, but you can't really hear yourself back particularly well, especially at the broadcast stage. So I think the first bit of advice: use the stuff that you have. Set up a demo thing, do a sound check. Does it sound good or does it sound bad? If it sounds bad, then think about how you can improve that, whether it's with a mic, a better USB interface. Yeah, you know, so if you've got the tools, some compression, maybe not. Sometimes compression doesn't sound so good depending on the platforms that you're working to, but definitely do a sound check. And I mean, if you're working in a place like the Red Room, where you've got someone like Elliot who's monitoring that stuff for you, then you've got a great person that is helping you make that, make your signal as good as it can possibly be. And I think that's something that, you know, I think musicians who work with crew should also consider. It's like, if you work with a sound person, normally when you're doing shows, get that person to help you make your streams sound better. You know, whether it's recommending some cool equipment to get, or utilizing what you do have in a more interesting, more efficient sort of way, but work with the people that have that knowledge, or that it can at least help listen to things that, that it's hard to hear by yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great. And in talking to the professionals that I know, I mean, test, and then test again, and then test again. Maybe this is a good time to talk a little bit about, so you may be able to set up your audio levels and get them into a consistent spot, and your lighting into a consistent spot. But the other dynamic thing that we're all dealing with is bandwidth and our internet connection. And most of the professionals that I know are saying, you know, never on Wi-Fi. Like, just, you know, if you're going to try to do something over Wi-Fi, like pre-record. And also, I mean, just realizing that, you know, that even though you test your internet at 2 p.m, well, at 4 p.m, you know, there may be a big draw. There may be the whole, you know, maybe everybody in the neighborhood is checking their email at that time, and suddenly you're going to, you know, your upload and download speeds are not going to necessarily be consistent. So, can any of you guys maybe talk specifically to bandwidth, internet connection, etc.?
I mean, I can start. I think in my experience, it definitely depends on the time of day and where you are. We've had a lot of luck actually getting people to use LTE or 4G connections. If you've got a decent data plan, a lot of the time your mobile up and down rates are a lot less susceptible to bandwidth crunches at different times of day. So while it may not be the most cost-effective way to do it, depending on your mobile data plan, you can often get a more consistent up and down speed on mobile than you can on landline, unless you're on fiber, I guess. Then it's a little bit more stable. But if you're on like ADSL, copper to the street, you're going to be susceptible to weather conditions and to, you know, bandwidth restrictions.
And if I understand that correctly, that's like that would be Shaw cable. Typically would be.
I probably haven't lived here long enough to know exactly who that would be, but yeah, it's more of a phone line. If you've got a phone line connected into a modem as opposed to a fiber optic cable connected, or a coaxial cable connected into your modem.
My understanding is, I mean, at least for me, I know TELUS has fiber to my house, but I think I'm still using Shaw, which is coming in off of a TV cable.
So, I mean, it's going to depend on where you are and how far away from the exchange you are. But if you're on copper, that is. Sorry, that's my phone ringing. I'm just saying it's weird. Like if you're having trouble with internet, sometimes going on 4G is or LTE is a lot more reliable. And we've had that on a bunch of live streams that we've done, where especially in more remote locations, where the Wi-Fi or the sort of to the home or to the place internet connection is unstable and not great, but a lot more infrastructure dollars have been spent on making the mobile networks more stable and more ubiquitous, and so sometimes that's just a better option for a lot of people. Yeah, so I'll start with that. I think that's definitely one way that you can utilize a bunch of different network connections.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about obviously like testing your upload and download speeds. I know there's a number of websites out there. I think one's speedtest.com maybe or something like that. I feel like I heard someone say that like a 3 megabyte upload is sort of the minimum that you should be aiming at. Do you guys have anything specifically you can sort of talk about?
I'll jump in quickly there on that. Really, it's going to depend on what you're trying to push out and what is your end goal. If you're looking to get a super high quality video source and audio out, then yes, you're going to need a larger upload speed. I wouldn't try to do like a 1920 1080 resolution on anything less than a 10 megabit upload, just for the sake of stability and to give yourself a bit of space if there is that network lag. I mean, the other alternative, if you don't need to be live, then doing a pre-recorded and using the YouTube or Facebook, they have a feature, Premiere, where you can upload your video ahead of time and play back that video as if it was a live performance. And that way you kind of get around the whole internet lagging and crashing for your live performance.
Right, that's a great point, Elliot. I mean, also, I guess, and the other way to approach pre-records would be to just have them on your computer, loaded into OBS, and just play them back. I mean, I know certainly for like the live shows that I do, you know, if I'm doing a show that doesn't allow for, you know, a big break for the audience to stand around and look at the stage, you know, I mean, I always have an extra video in my back pocket just in case something starts to fail, in case the musicians aren't ready. You know, and I think that if we started packaging our live shows up like that, you know, that might give us a little bit of fallback if suddenly, you know, your live thing's not working, you can always throw to a video. Let's talk a little bit about, I mean, I think the other thing that maybe, Mirko, that I was thinking about some of the things that you were saying is just jumping back to audio quality, is just like understanding mic proximity as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to end up doing stuff just with a single microphone, maybe a USB microphone or something that, you know, even a 58 and a DI box that they happen to have, you know, cheap from Long and McQuaid, into a little analog mixer into your interface. Mm-hmm. Is a viable option for a lot of people. And I'm seeing a lot of things, people where they are, you know, you're simply miking the room in its entirety, and it becomes the musician's job to sort of use the proximity of the mic to, you know, louder things, farther away, quieter things. I mean, I think certainly the thing that I'm seeing a lot is acoustic guitars overshadowing the vocal, and
yeah.
I think that's
well, and I think from my perspective, that just has a lot to do with learned behavior. You know, if you're used to standing on a stage and you've got your acoustic guitar plugged in, you're singing through a mic. You've generally, you'll have some sort of monitor wedges, like some sort of way to monitor yourself, and that can give you it's a different fault. It's almost like a false sense of security. So it's really easy to for your voice to get lost, because your instrument's going to be as loud as your instrument is, but your voice is also your instrument. So I think to do this stuff well, you have to really understand your instrument. And if your main instrument of choice is your voice, then you have to understand how that works. And again, like, listen to your sound check. If you're back here and you're playing and it's like, and then you're listening back to it and you're like, oh, it sounds like crap. So maybe I should move close to the mic, or maybe I should move the mic a bit more like this, so it's picking up more of my guitar and a little bit more of my voice. I think a lot of it is just trial and error, depending on what you're doing and how you want to perform. So I think, to me, it just goes back to sound check and understanding your instruments properly. I think if you're playing a ukulele, it's really small, very plucky sounding, and you're playing it into your iPhone mic, your iPhone is automatically going to try and make that sound like a voice, because that's what it's designed to do. But listening back to it, you might say, okay, well, actually, yeah, it sort of sounds, it looks a little bit strange, but maybe moving like my voice closer and the ukulele more to the side kind of gives you a better balance of that. So I think a lot of that technique we've just never had to learn before, because most of the time you either have more microphones or a lot more technical infrastructure around you to compensate when something is loud or soft. But to me, it just goes back to sound check. Record yourself doing the thing, and if the answer, like if you would pay to hear someone do that, then you've nailed it. And if you haven't, if it doesn't sound good and you wouldn't pay someone to do it, then you need to improve what you're doing. And I think that doesn't necessarily mean you need to go and buy more gear. It just means you need to understand the equipment that you have. And that if that's a laptop microphone or a webcam microphone or a USB mic or a sound card or studio mics, whatever it is that you have, understanding how they work and how they sort of work together with your instruments will make a big difference. So I think, to me, it's sound check. Just record yourself and try and learn how you can improve on that.
And I think that this is maybe a good time. I mean, I'm a musician, but I'm also a crew guy, and I think it's worthy of sort of saying to our musician community out there. I mean, you walk into a nightclub, you are taking advantage of the expertise of the sound tech, the lighting tech, the monitor tech, all these different people that have dedicated their lives to understanding the technology and elevating, the music. This is a similar situation. And of course, we've all been in a situation where we have to do everything ourselves at home. But as things loosen up and we expand our, what's safe, I do, Mirko mentioned it before, but I really encourage musicians to reach out to the technicians out there and or filmmakers or videographers, and partner with them as best they can, tap their expertise and certainly have somebody on the call, on the line, monitoring, as well as maybe setting up a system so that the person that's monitoring the feed has a way of communicating back to the artist to say, hey, your guitar is too loud. Hey, you're too close to the microphone, or you need to get closer to the microphone. Thinking about those sort of internal communications and ways that you can adjust that performance live without sort of, stopping the show entirely or just having that mistake happen and then try to improve it next time. You want to be able to fix it in the moment. And there's a lot of people out there that have that expertise. So don't be afraid to go looking for that.
I will also say, Rob, there's a lot of people who are looking at retooling their skill set. So, a live sound mixer might be your next, live stream, like, superstar. So I think there's definitely worth a discussion between musicians and their crew to see how you can grow together into this, sort of new reality that the music industry has found itself in and will be in for, a substantial time to come. So I think there is a lot of knowledge out there, and it's a great time to build, a new kind of togetherness to make cool stuff happen, and also to make new ideas, to really elevate how your audience experiences your music, to not just be another person in front of your camera playing the guitar. It's just how you can make what you do a better experience for your audience. I think it's a golden opportunity to do that, and it's going to need musicians and technicians and creative thinkers to do that. So I think anyone who's playing in a band who is thinking about doing some sort of live stream thing, work together with other people. I think that's the best thing you can have, even if it's just someone telling you that to put your camera higher, or someone like Caisha, helping you with lighting or something like that. I think that it makes a huge difference to how people perceive you, and it's a really good time to have those conversations and to build a team around this. Like, the people that I know who are successful at doing this are not doing it on their own. They have a team of people that help, whether it's, if it's like VJ, like transparent overlays in OBS, like making DJ sets look cooler, or so, people like Elliot who are, helping elevate these experiences in a live setting and in a different sort of environment and space. You need these people with different expertise to help you do that. And while I understand that not everyone's going to have the resources to pay those people, if you do your live streaming thing well and you find a way to monetize it, the people that will help you make it look and sound better will also help you make it a more viable economic proposition as a show.
I think that's a great point, Mirko. And maybe that's a great place just to pause and look at throwing to questions. We've got about 15 minutes left. Maybe Jimmy, you want to pop back on and help us moderate some of these questions. I'm seeing one here on the chat from Melanie Decker. She says, when you use OBS and then upload to YouTube, do you notice the video and audio out of sync once you upload to YouTube? Can we talk a little bit about audio sync, guys? I know I'm not necessarily an expert, but I know that I've had the same experience in terms of, so when I say sync, out of sync, guys, we're talking about typically the audio being ahead of the video is usually what happens. So you're hearing the sound, and then you see somebody moving or their lips moving, and you want to line those two things up so that they are happening at the same time. Otherwise, it feels disconnected. I know that within OBS, Melanie, there is settings for all of your audio to delay the audio input, and you can use that to line up the video. So that's sync problems that are happening before you upload, I guess.
Sound check.
Yeah.
Sound check.
So yeah, you can
record it and watch
just
it back.
Check it. Yeah.
Have a look at some of those settings, and I know that when we have done live casting and in the corporate world, Elliot can speak to this. I mean, there's an endless amount of time with someone just clapping into the camera as the audio techs try to tweak that delay so that the sound of the clap lines up with the physical, hands meeting each other. So yeah, playing around in those things will probably take care of a lot of those things. I don't know if anyone else wants to.
Just to quickly speak to that is pretty important for everyone to understand that for every device in between your camera and your computer, or your microphone and your computer, there's going to be delay added in. So if you're just going straight from your camera, if it's just a USB camera and you're using your internal microphone, the delay should be very minimal. But as soon as you start adding in a video capture device or your audio interface into that signal chain, you're going to want to check your delay and sync your audio to your video.
Yeah, and to speak on that as well, I think her question is regards to after the live stream uploading to YouTube. Jimmy, maybe was it like coming after the live stream that she was having these sync issues, or?
Yeah, I'm seeing Melanie
Okay.
comment on the chat here.
Yeah.
She says, fine in OBS, but I don't know about audio syncing there, but it's once you upload to YouTube, it's messed up.
Yeah, so basically just watch it back, and if you're noticing that, just use any kind of movie editing software. Like obviously Adobe Premiere is probably the best you can use, and you have a lot of sweet options if you want to like actually edit that live stream after the fact. But any video editing software is going to automatically separate the video and the audio, so you can just line that up and then re-export and then throw it up onto YouTube. And if for some reason it's happening with your YouTube settings, just Google like optimal YouTube settings and make sure you're exporting from your editing software to those optimal settings.
I'll also just say to check your sample rates to make sure they're consistent from end to end, so that OBS or any of these other sort of streaming software that you're using doesn't have to do any converting for you. So if you're capturing your audio source at 44.1, make sure it's being output at 44.1 or 48 or whatever it is. But yeah, make sure that your bit rates are matched.
I did see some sort of YouTube thing a while ago that's saying that Zoom doesn't like to receive 44.1. Maybe somebody can confirm that, or go looking in that. But I did see some articles. I was having some trouble outputting a Logic session into Zoom, and I think it was because my Logic session was in 44.1, and Zoom apparently its native resolution, it likes to see 4800. So
yeah,
maybe.
So I think in that I would definitely look at you making an aggregate audio interface if you're on a Mac. That will stop that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
It'll introduce some really nice delay that you have to compensate for as well. But it will enable you to combine sample rates into something more pleasing. And I think that's unique to the Zoom like audio driver, right, Rob? I think it's if you choose the Zoom audio driver in Logic. So whereas if you use an aggregate audio interface that you've made in OS X, Mac OS, or whatever it's called now, you shouldn't run into those problems. It's very similar to what we're doing with remote ADR work, where we're combining a whole bunch of different types of streaming platforms and communication protocols together. Here in the studio, we have, like a big sort of Avid matrix box that allows us to do all that converting of different stream sources together. But you can do the same thing in your computer. And it's really just finding a mechanism to standardize your audio formats into something that the program can understand easily without having to do any conversion.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy, how's our questions looking?
Got a couple more, guys. This one is: does going through an audio interface as a singer-songwriter mean you have to use headphones? Can't say I love performing with headphones on.
I would say yes and no. I mean, if you set up your microphones in a way that, and you test, and it sounds pleasing, and you know that you are going to stay consistently in that spot, you're not going, and you're okay to not have that immediate response to what it sounds like when your guitar comes forward or backwards or you're moving around, then sure, you can go without headphones and just try to trust that it sounds good. But it's somewhat like performing live on stage with no monitor. You're not going to have the immediate feedback of hearing what it sounds like.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I have a point on that too. I don't know if it's mobility that you're talking about in terms of wearing headphones while performing, but I would say invest in a pair of open back headphones. That way you're not completely, you can still hear yourself because you can still have the acoustics of the room happening. The pair that I would plug is that Sennheiser and Mass Drop, which is now Drop. released a pair. They're called the Sennheiser 6XX, and they go for $200, and they're the exact same tech model. It's the same thing as the Sennheiser 650s, which sell for $600. So check out that link, because you're going to be able to hear yourself a lot better while performing, while still being able to monitor your audio interface.
Just make sure you don't turn yourself up too loud.
Yeah.
Feedback.
Yep.
So then we've got another one more on the bandwidth sector. So Wi-Fi and 4G, I've tried them all. Ethernet is the answer in my experience. Are any of you using that? So
yes.
Yes. Yeah, I think
exclusively. Yeah.
Yeah. Get as high as you want to get as much bandwidth as you can get. I also talked to a friend of mine that does online broadcasting professionally, and he was saying that he almost exclusively broadcasts in 720 as opposed to 1080, because he thinks that the HD, it's not really translating in most cases. Can you guys maybe speak a little bit to screen resolution and streaming resolutions?
Yeah, I'll just say for it depends on what platform you're going to be streaming to, and how that looks for you. For example, we started streaming to Twitch, and the first time you start streaming there is next to no control on what your viewers can see. So yes, you might be able to send a nice 1080p, 60 frames a second, super high bandwidth video out, but without advancing through the partnership levels on Twitch, your viewers have to receive that video at 1080 as well, which might not be possible for them. Maybe their internet's slow. So, streaming at a lower resolution at first gives a benefit to everyone, gives your internet a break, so you can make sure that you can upload, as well as your viewers would be able to receive that.
I'm gonna get a break here. Mirko is a very busy guy. He has to jump off. So before we get to the next question, just thank you, Mirko, for being here.
Sorry, everyone. Hit me up on email. Jimmy can pass around my secret study email, maybe, if anyone's got any specific questions or needs, we can help them with. Thanks, everyone. Got to jump. Sorry, guys.
Thanks,
Have a
Mirko.
good day. Okay, bye.
I've got time for one or two more questions. This one's for Caisha. How would you best help talent stay within the camera bounds, especially when they aren't used to remaining stationary during a performance? It's kind of like a director.
Oh yeah, for sure. I answered this in the chat, but I know that's not going to Facebook. Just get some painter's tape or gaffer's tape, and especially your camera's stationary, just tape lines on the floor at the edge of frame, and make sure your performer's aware that, hey, don't cross over this line. It's the same thing as we do for actors for hitting their marks. It's kind of an X marks the spot kind of thing. Even if there's an optimal space for lighting, say you're doing a lighting setup, just put like an X, and it's kind of their cue. So simple as that. And like painter's tape's good because it won't like pull up any carpet or it won't damage your floor, right? So
absolutely. And last question, again, we've recorded all these questions. I'm going to be circulating this with the panel afterwards, so check out the Facebook page and follow us, and subscribe to our newsletter. All the questions that weren't covered today will definitely get answered, and again, always available to reach out to me or our team at MusicBC. Last question. So this is more about, we're talking about the idea that you don't have to go it alone. You don't have to produce a live stream or recording content like yourself. So the question is, tips or resources for finding a team. Is there a database? Is there any way that you guys can think to guide someone that's maybe new, hasn't worked with the team before? Where do they start?
So these are people that are looking to find technicians that or technical people that can help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Start with us, Elliot and I, and I'm sure Caisha as well, have probably a long list of people that are qualified and interested. I mean, the live industry is, as we all know, come to a full stop. So there is an endless number of very talented technical people that are 100% out of work and looking to exercise that side of their mind. So certainly reach out to us. I mean, think about the technicians that worked in the clubs that you know. Think about the guys that work at, you know, Long and McQuaid. You know, reach into your networks. You know, certainly somebody in your musicians network knows a technical person. I mean, we're all in the same family. So I know that's not specific, but yeah, feel free to reach out to Elliot and I, or for sure, or you know, anybody here on Music BC. I'm sure we can push you in the right direction.
We got names. We got names. Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys. This has been incredibly insightful, and I know it's a huge topic to cover, but I definitely learned something. And again, thanks for everyone for engaging, for asking your questions. Again, I'll be circulating these, and we'll get them answered and have a bit of a debrief next week. Thanks again, guys.
Awesome.
I know it's the same without an applause, but yeah, we'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Have a great weekend.